They laughed. In the crowded courtroom, the two officers smirked as the handcuffed man was led inside, his suit wrinkled, his wrists raw from the cold metal biting into his skin. "Guess he thought he was somebody," one officer whispered, loud enough for the crowd to hear. The man didn't respond, he only looked straight ahead, calm, collected. Nobody in that room knew that this defendant was not just somebody, but the highest-ranking officer in the nation's most feared investigative agency. And when the truth came out, every smirk would vanish, replaced with shame. The courthouse buzzed with noise. A black man in his early 40s, tall, sharply built, but with his dignity masked behind handcuffs, was marched forward by two officers who treated him like a common criminal. His name was James Carter, though almost nobody in the room recognized him. The charge against him: resisting arrest and trespassing. A manufactured case, born from prejudice. James had been walking home late at night after visiting his sick mother in a quiet suburb. The police, seeing a black man in a tailored suit near an upscale neighborhood, assumed the worst. Another wannabe businessman trying to look rich, one officer had joked while pushing him against the squad car. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution treated him like a nobody. The officers laughed openly, exchanging glances with the judge as if his guilt was already decided. James said nothing, his silence unnerving even his lawyer. But as the trial began, little cracks appeared. James's lawyer presented evidence, his credentials, his work, his position. Still, the courtroom scoffed, who would believe this man was anything beyond what he appeared? James kept his head bowed, thinking not of himself, but of how many others had sat in these very seats, judged not by truth but by skin color. He knew the pain well. But he also knew something none of them did, the storm that was about to sweep across the room. Halfway through the trial, the defense attorney asked James one simple question. "Mr. Carter, would you please state your occupation for the record?" The room fell into uneasy silence as James lifted his head, his voice deep and steady. "My name is James Carter. I am the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation." The words hit like thunder. Gasps filled the air. The prosecutor's face drained of color. The judge shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The two officers who had mocked him earlier suddenly sat stiff, their laughter gone, replaced with fear. James reached into his pocket, slowly, carefully, and produced his federal credentials, still intact, still glowing with authority. Courtroom security scrambled to verify. Within minutes, it was confirmed, this was not a fraud. This man was indeed the FBI director. The courtroom was dead silent as James stood, chains still on his wrists. "I was humiliated, not for who I am, but for what I look like," he said firmly. "And this is not just about me. Every day, men and women of color are treated as criminals before they are seen as human beings. Today, you mocked me. But tomorrow, someone without my title will face the same cruelty, and they will have no voice to defend them. That is the real crime in this room." Tears welled in the eyes of several spectators. Even the judge couldn't hold his head high. Slowly, the bailiff removed James's handcuffs. The weight of metal fell, but the weight of shame remained heavy on everyone else. The officers tried to apologize, but James only shook his head. "Apologies don't erase scars," he said quietly. "Change does." And as he walked out of the courtroom, not as a defendant, but as the nation's top lawman, the message was clear: dignity cannot be cuffed, truth cannot be mocked, and respect is not a privilege to be earned, it is a right. This story isn't just about humiliation and power. It's about justice, dignity, and the strength to rise above prejudice. James Carter didn't just walk out free, he walked out as a symbol. A reminder that no matter how high or low you stand, respect must never be denied.